Hello and welcome to another episode of Wednesday Night Undressed. I am Lou, your host, and I am joined tonight by the most awesome of panels. I have Mr. Anthony, Miss Lauran,
Hello.
Mr. Chris,
Yay.
Miss Alena, Mr. Fernando, hello, and the man of the hour. The Tower of Power. Too sweet to be sour. Made a sex appeal. Oh, I think I've screwed it up. Mr. Evo, how you doing?
Hey, how are you guys? All right.
Sorry, I had chicken in my mouth.
You are fine, my friend. Those look like they're really good wings. Are they good tonight?
Mango habanero.
Nice, nice.
You're like
All right.
nowhere near your mic, hon.
So let's start with a very important question. For no particular reason, and I'm definitely not planning next year's April Fool's pranks. Let's talk about your biggest phobias. Mr. Chris, what is your biggest phobia?
Probably people who are susceptible to cult-like behavior.
Oh, you got to explain that one a little bit.
Well, I mean, given current
political scene.
Yeah, and you know the idea that if a particular person wins the election this year, that given what I'm probably going to have to do in terms of civil disobedience with what Project 2025 is supposedly going to put down, it's probably going to mean that I'm going to lose my life to some of these stupid people. Either I refuse to swear fealty to the new king president, or swear that I believe in a Christian God, which also might be, or, you know, I'll be out protesting any kind of stupidity that the incoming administration decides to put down.
Gotcha. Okay.
And, you know, that's the only thing that really scares me is, you know, just people who are willing to go along with what anybody says, even though it's absolutely stupid and completely against what they supposedly believed just 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, but that's not a phobia. That's a rational fear. I think most of us have a fear right now of what we are seeing as the existential threat to our country.
Well, that's why I see it as a phobia, because it's still existential, because it still may not happen. It still may. Who knows what happens if Trump does win in August? You know, maybe some people will step up and constrain him and realize that.
I'm
What?
looking for an irrational fear. I'm looking for a fear of spiders.
I hate to say this, but I've gotten rid of all my irrational fears.
Oh, gotcha. All right, so Chris is superhuman.
I used to be having a irrational fear of spiders. Yes, very much so. I used to absolutely freak out about spiders, but I got over it.
Gotcha.
Honey, can you relate?
Are you a spider person too?
No. I hate spiders.
Gotcha.
I hate spiders so much. I make him kill them.
Gotcha.
That's why I got married.
It's my only use.
I
mean, I do other
You
things,
did have
but I
to. You
can't
did have to
openly
kill
say
a
them.
brown recluse that was next to me. So
That tracks. All right, what other phobias do you have? Do you know of?
I don't know if it's a phobia. I don't like clowns.
I think that would fit. As
I know
like
it's a
an
phobia,
irrational
but
fear.
I'm not. My mom has a true phobia of clowns, whereas I don't like them.
Right.
But I'm not
you're
terrified of them.
Gotcha,
You know what I
gotcha.
mean? One of my favorite horror movies is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I
Wow. Okay. I'll allow it.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to be terrified for it to be a
yeah.
phobia.
I think the only other one is tryptophobia, which is the fear of holes in things.
So that one is mine.
Oh my god!
That
Every time I
bothers
see
me.
that stupid Photoshop photo, the seed pods on somebody's body.
That's actually kind of true, because there is a
Stop,
bug that if you
stop,
smack it,
stop,
it does lay
stop,
its eggs in
stop.
your skin.
Stop!
I'll show you photos later.
I'm
It's
gonna
really
hit
neat.
you.
I'm not sure that that's the wisest course of action a husband can take. So I'm just gonna toss that out there.
If we come back and gather next Wednesday and my face is a little fucked up, I done goofed.
Exactly.
Stop!
All right, Miss Alena, how about you? Do you know of any phobias that you have?
Yeah, so I think that from what I've read online, I don't know for sure, but I I didn't know that this was what agoraphobia is, but I think I'm slightly agoraphobic. Where I read online that it's actually, because I thought it was a fear of open spaces or like just people in general, but it's
Basically a
actually
fear of going outside. Basically.
they said online, but online could be wrong. It's a fear of public embarrassment, and it can happen just after like 2 public panic attacks. And I was like, oh, because like I've been doing stand-up comedy since I was 16,
Right.
and that just is like public embarrassment. It just is like putting yourself up for public embarrassment, and especially if you fail.
You've never been drunk at the casino like I have. That's embarrassing.
That's true. That's true. But this thought of like being in like a new group of people or a group of people where like you might get publicly embarrassed or people might know of times you've been publicly embarrassed and then having a hard time being around groups of people makes sense to me as a phobia. Then it's irrational, but a fear people have.
That's a surprise to me because you perform on stage since you were 6 years old and you've never had stage fright, or at least you never exhibited stage fright. In fact, you might be shy and worried when you're in social interaction, but once you stepped on stage, everything went away and you were on fire and you were relaxed.
That's nice of you to say. I said
No,
the
you've
stage,
always been great on stage.
The stage part is not what's scary. The part that's scary is thinking afterwards, like, what did people
But
think of
see,
that?
you take your material
that's a
that
shy
you
person.
create it, you write it, you perform it, and you're not afraid to get on stage in front of 100 people or more and perform it. Never afraid. So I don't know. I mean,
Right, but then afraid in person when you're talking to people, which is it's a weird it's a
dichotomy.
and that's a phobia because like there's no reason to be.
Like for you, when you're on stage, you've got a persona that's protecting you. And
Yeah,
then,
that's exactly it.
yeah, nope, I that tracks. I don't think I have that. I think I don't. I think I just naturally assume that everybody's laughing at me anyway, so I'm not any more worried about it at any other time.
That's a better way to go about it.
No, that's super unhealthy.
That's how I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's laughing at you unless you're trying to be funny.
Exactly.
Then nobody's
exactly.
laughing.
Then nobody's laughing. That is the problem. That is it. Mr.
That's
LaForte,
not true.
what about you? Do you have any phobias?
Well,
I mean, I know you don't like black people.
no, come on. Well, Republicans, Supreme Court judges.
Great.
So
You're in the
that's- I
same
think
boat
that's
as Chris. Okay.
No, but there is some like spiders or like bats, but it's not that I'm keeping. It's when I gotta deal with, and I deal with because at the end, if I don't take care, who's gonna take care? But I hate, or like a mice that the cat just kill and drop like on the floor somewhere. It just makes me disgusted, and then like I don't know, keeps printed in my mind, and
That's interesting.
it's weird, but you gotta deal with. Intruders, it's weird. Depending on the place I am, like think about, let's say you imagine I have that irrational that someone gonna break in your house. But the fun is, it's not in every house that I am that I get that paranoia.
Right.
And doesn't matter if I was like 15 or 20s or whatever how old I am right now. And from time to time, but I never experienced that at my current house. And I had a lot at my previous house.
Gotcha.
It's so bizarre, and neighborhood doesn't change much. So that weird, you hear a noise or a tree like branch, and you get that paranoia on extreme. And then in certain place that doesn't even exist or never happened before.
Right.
I think that's all I have.
So, you and I met from a technology background, and part of what we had to do was wire houses.
Yeah.
Did the wiring houses, did you ever come across like a dead animal in a wall or something like that? And if you did it freak you out?
Not really, no, I don't recall. Luckily, not a single one, and of course you see probably, residue like dairy from bats, and but I never deal with wiring, at least, that I recall. No.
Gotcha. Well, cool. All right, so let's see. I got Colts for Chris, and I got a little bit of Colts for Fernando. And so Alena said public groupings. And Mr. Anthony, what about you?
I had a fear of heights, but then in boot camp, they pushed me out of an 80-foot tower, and then I kind of got rid of that. And then they put me in a helicopter where they said 50-50 chance it crashes. And then it came back, and then we landed, and then it went away.
Gotcha.
Facing your fears, classic. Overcoming the phobia.
Well, it wasn't even facing my fears. It was somebody who was higher up the enlisted branch saying, hey, go do this. Okay.
You have no choice. Yeah.
That was like kind of another one I thought of was fear of heights for me, and like it's irrational, but also rational.
No,
for,
it's
like,
rational.
I have
Because
a
gravity
way.
will kill you.
I have a way of rationalizing it. It's like not necessarily a fear of heights. It's a fear of like falling from heights and like free falling, because the feeling of free fall feels like a panic attack.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Oh, I hate free fall.
lack
Which
of
is why I
control,
don't like
yeah.
roller coasters.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't like anything that'll drop out my stomach, and like so like for me it's a rational fear because like because as a person who gets actual panic attacks, like I can't with adrenaline junkies because I'm like I don't know how tell me you've never had a panic attack in your life without telling me you've never, because I don't know anyone who would welcomely invite the feeling of a panic attack.
I absolutely love exactly what you're describing because it is the feeling of a panic attack without the actual panic.
My body will start panicking on its own.
So no, that makes sense. That absolutely
My body
makes
will like
sense.
feel like anything related to a panic attack because
Yeah.
my adrenalines are already so high because I have generalized anxiety disorder. So I'm like naturally at an 11 at all times.
Right.
So like my body will feel something related to a panic attack and will immediately be like, okay, let's go. Like,
Right.
like straight out.
No. when
Also,
I-
the public embarrassment one, I have fears of running into people who saw my first public panic attack, which is everyone in my German class in my sophomore year. So,
No, when I went to Bulgaria with Evo back in 2005, they had slingshots on the beach.
nope.
And the absolute best part is because it like the ones that you see right now are ones that where you get into a cage, and that's not what they had in Bulgaria back then. It was just rubber bands that they wrapped
It
around.
was completely deregulated. It shot him in the lower troposphere. It was freaking frightening. He disappeared. He turned into a tiny dot in the sky, like a freaking spaceship.
Nope.
And SpaceX, you know, it just he
Absolutely not.
disappeared.
And
And,
the
at
feeling-
some point he lost.
I'm
you said
uncomfortable
that
hearing
you
about this.
explain it, the loss of that anything was holding on to you for a second.
That was the absolute best part. I'm going up. I still have like acceleration because the rubber bands have pulled me, but they're no longer like exerting any force. So it's just my body. Like, it's the best
when the
feeling.
rubber bands got loose at the very end before you start going
back down.
and you're just completely like
Yeah,
weightless and
I
it's
would
freaking.
do that every day if I could. I
Did you
swear.
get caught into something at the end of that,
No.
or just back on the beach?
No, and you've done it, Alena,
It's-
but you were in a little cabin.
I don't recall. this.
You were with Lexi.
No,
and-
that wasn't me.
Lexi.
I
and-
never did that.
Yeah, at Sunny Beach.
I never did that. Lexi and Abby
Lexi
did
and
that.
Abby did it.
I
You
refuse to do
stayed-
that.
yeah, you
I'm
stayed on
afraid
the
of
ground.
those things. They went
Yeah.
into a cage and did that. I refuse
Yeah.
to do that. That
Yeah.
I'm just a. I'm
They
just
were
scared.
in a little gondola, Lou. It was the exact same thing.
Right.
But Abby and Lexi were in a little gondola. I thought Alena was with them, but she wasn't, I guess. And they got shot and, went obviously into the stratosphere and and then came back gasping for oxygen.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
We
So
were in outer space.
I don't think you're wrong. I'm just saying.
No.
Like I actually like live for that
Yeah.
feeling.
With the
where my-
adrenaline.
Yeah.
If
the
your body
adrenaline-
can like differentiate the feeling from a panic attack
Yeah.
from an adrenaline rush, good for you.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I got one more for Lauren here. This is not my April Fool's list. So let's see. All right, Evo.
If you use panic attacks against me, I swear to God.
What about you, Evo?
I probably have a couple. I hate swarms. Swarms. So let's say a single rat doesn't worry me, or two or three,
yeah.
or two
I
or
just
three
thought
rats.
it
So
was swarm.
I remember I was
Yeah.
in the army,
Tiny
and
rat, yes.
and I was in the kitchen in the army, and I was doing something, and then I stopped for a second, doing whatever, and was quiet. I was thinking about something, and that's when a few rats came out of holes and started climbing up the legs of a table to get on the table and look for, and I was okay. But once they got too many of them, I made a noise and they disappeared. But it got me thinking how much I dislike swarms of living things. This quivering mass of living organisms together. It seems like they get a life of their own and they move together, whether it's a swarm of bees or bats or rats or
Like a hive mind?
yeah, and that I have a phobia of that because it feels like it can overcome me, and it's freaking suffocating, the idea of this mass of things coming at you, and they have a mind of their own. They have some kind of hive mind, so that worries me. And then that's a phobia, clearly. And then also I have a phobia of death within an organism. So like one time Jamie's cat died underneath a porch. It was a long time ago. Linka, I think you were born, but you were very little. And she died under a porch. It was mauled by a raccoon or something, and I had to retrieve the body. There's a smell to death. I've experienced that smell a few times. I worked in a morgue when I was in the army for a couple of weeks. So there is a specific smell. Death smells in a weird way. It's not necessarily bad, like
It's kind of sweet.
it's it is. No, you identify it, and so I fear that encounter, whether it's an animal or a human. I know it's there. I can sense it, and I have a phobia towards that. So that's kind of a dichotomy, because on one end, I'm afraid of a singular death, and on the other hand, I'm afraid of a massive life, of a swarm of life. So yeah, it's interesting. I got to think about that and talk to Mr. Freud.
They'll just tell you want to bang your
Any
mom.
good therapist will
Doesn't
do it.
help anybody.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's interesting because I am, like Lauran, you mentioned the circles thing, the open circles. When I was a kid, when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I am looking at a field of birds, and they're just talking, like just a bunch of birds opening their mouth, closing their mouth. I was terrified.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any explanation for it except it's like this opening and closing thing of these holes that I'm seeing.
Yeah, we all know you're afraid of crabs.
Yes,
Like an army
yes.
of crabs.
Oh, I don't know that everybody knows. Yes, so
Oh, you're talking about the animal.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I was about
Yeah,
to say.
about
I'm pretty
the
sure.
He has this.
Shampoo
There's a
can
big
help
crab
you.
and there's a little crab,
Right.
but
He has this recurring dream, horrible nightmare of
Since
this
I was
army
like
of
3 or 4 years old.
lobsters, basically
Yeah.
chasing him and
Little
making a weird sound.
Red mechanical
I
lobsters.
don't know if you know this, but you're in a landlocked state.
Yeah, that's
So you should
that's
be
the reason
okay.
he's in a landlocked state.
Right?
That phobia
right?
made him go here.
Exactly,
Stay here.
exactly.
I had a fear of the Energizer Bunny as a kid.
I get that.
And I think it was 'cause, like, there's one
You
specific...
tell me that now?
Shut up. So there's a specific...
I wouldn't have said yes.
you've not seen any of the tarantula swarms out in Kansas? Down near Winfield? I've seen them.
Right.
I've seen them driving down. I've seen like a multitude of tarantulas crossing the road.
So in Southwest Kansas and Fowler, whenever we go down there, there's always like a softball game going on, and then my brothers and I would walk back to our aunt and uncle's house, which is like on the other side of town. It's not that far. They'd always tell us, be careful about rattlesnakes and stuff.
Swarms
my
of
brothers,
snakes. Oh.
because when
Yeah.
it gets hot, they
Yeah.
will kind of bunch together.
Yeah.
Like that little
I'm the
snake ball.
dumbass.
Not okay.
I'll
Not okay.
pick them up, and I kind of brought one home, and my dad was very confused on how I was not bit by a rattlesnake.
Yeah. Well,
was just wondering-
when you picked it up because
yeah.
that's one of the reasons why they group together, especially when it's cold. They share their warmth, and you must have picked it up when it was cold, and they were still pretty docile. Cause
Any swarm, snakes, spiders, rats, young Republicans, anything. with-
Young Republicans. I wanted to.
old Republicans.
I wanted to
Republicans in
counter.
general.
I wanted to counter
Damn,
because
so-
they're encountering when the
me.
phobias are actually rational versus irrational. Because the phobia has to be irrational. That a swarm is likely carrying like rabies, rats with the fleas used to carry bubonic plague.
Or hunger.
Death
They can
is
just
likely
eat
carrying
you,
some
yeah.
level of disease and something. So,
So
like,
that's rational.
if you're afraid of those things, it does seem like there's some rationality involved.
I mean, every phobia is rational. If you think about it, there's even clowns. Sounds silly, but who are people that are clowns? A lot of them are freaking sociopaths and maniacs. So fear of heights. Of course, it's a rational phobia because our old enemy, gravity, is going to kill you. We dream of falling down for a reason. It's embedded in our DNA since we were living in the trees and we were sleeping on the branches, and our ancestors will fall from the branches and die. So this fear, like when you dream of falling, that's what it is. It's embedded in our genetic code. So yeah, it's all of it is rational.
Yeah, but it just becomes irrational when it affects your behavior. Like you can't go into a tall building because of your fear of heights and get into an elevator.
Or go outside.
Or
of your
even,
room. Yeah.
because you should know that elevator has been engineered that even if it does, the cable does snap. There's brakes on it that are going to stop it. There's multiple numbers of failures for that elevator, and your fear of heights shouldn't preclude you from getting on one.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Okay, so I want to explain the Energizer Bunny one. So, sorry, I need to explain myself because I've told multiple people this and they don't know what I'm talking about. So, the one listener we have, please tell me if you remember this specific ad. So, for some reason, in the early 2000s, I think I was 3 or 4, and I swear I didn't make this up, but I cannot find it anywhere. There was an ad where they randomly decided to make the Energizer Bunny scary. And I feel like this dude in this one hallway in this long corridor, and he's being chased by a red-eyed, barely visible Energizer Bunny. And
I
this
remember
was
that
an
ad.
You remember this?
I remember that ad.
Thank you. I feel so vindicated right now that someone else remembers.
It was like
this
a
ad.
Halloween special, if I remember right.
Yeah, because they made him like a horror villain. And so I had a fear of that specific Energizer Bunny coming into my room at night, so I started sleeping with the door closed.
You were like 3 or 4, you said?
I was 3 or 4.
Yeah, I can see.
I had a vivid memory of that specific ad, but anytime I ever brought it up with anybody, nobody knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, because the ad is actually kind of comic, but I can see a 3 or 4 year old being scared by it
because red-eyed pink
Yeah.
bunny slowly creeping at someone in a long corridor, and I was like, no.
That's also rational because if you think of bunnies, I mean, what could be scarier than a 7-foot tall, hyperactive sex addict? Because that's what rabbits are,
Nasty shirt.
With
I
nasty
thought you were
shirt.
talking about me.
Banicula. I don't know. I think Banicula's cute. So
I love Banicula.
All right. Let's see. How about
someone else remembers that ad. Thank you.
I am sorry that Julian is not here because this is actually his question. Which of the generational stereotypes is true? I give the example that, for instance, boomers don't understand technology. So I'm gonna ask some of the old heads at the table first.
Okay, I'm gonna eat my burger.
All right, Chris, what do you think of as a generational stereotype that's true?
I don't know if it's generational, but yeah, I think generally the older you get, the more skeptical you do kind of get of technology. That it does. It's different for me because I was born in the 20th century, and so I've been around tech all my life.
Mm-hmm.
So while, as computers came online and eventually cell phones, I watched my grandfather really kind of just swing into it. He picked it up and ran with it. So it's really kind of, for me, more what your mindset is as opposed to the generations.
Gotcha.
But generally speaking, the older you get, the more kind of skeptical, and because I never owned a cell phone, and probably never will.
Luddite. All right, Mr. Evo, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, what was the generation before the boomers? Does anyone remember?
They are the silent generation.
Silent.
What is the generation before the silent generation?
I don't think that one has a name.
There you go. We started separating generations artificially very recently. There is no separation. We are all mankind. We basically, have always, throughout millennia, separated ourselves in old and new. But recently, we started separating every other decade into its own generation. And maybe it has to do with very accelerated advancements in technology. I think the fact that we're separating ourselves in Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, Generation whatever, is because of technology. Technology forced us to separate ourselves and create those stereotypes, which are completely artificial. You know, silent generation.
I don't know. There's a difference between somebody who went to high school in the 1980s and somebody who went to high school in 2010.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying
Like,
there-
not in terms of, like, I mean, there's just like there's a cultural difference and a historical difference in terms of, like, don't you think?
Yeah, no, we are a product of our times, always. You know, we can't escape from our era, no matter what we do, from the terminology, the economy, the political environment, the social ecosystem, the jargon. You know, we are a product of our times, except I think we've gone overboard. You know, we are so obsessed now with creating the next, like every decade has to be its own generation. We forgot to be human. You know, I wear a hat that says be a good human for a reason. I'm trying to spread the message. You know, we are just men and we are mankind, humankind, and we find so many ways to fucking create borders between ourselves, boundaries. You know, we try to separate ourselves on red and blue and chiefs and raiders and this and that and
Cracking your egg on the small side as opposed to the big side.
Yeah.
Thank you,
yeah,
Jonathan
and-
Swift.
What's your favorite burner on your stove? You know?
Yeah, we you know, conservative and liberal, we are all just fucking humans, people, and we forget that. And I think the more we separate ourselves and create those boundaries, the worse we are off. So, you know, what is my the one stereotype I don't like? It's just separating ourselves
Right,
into
right.
different generations.
Yeah.
Is the stereotype that I don't like. So that's it.
I agree. On the other hand, those Gen Zs got a weird fucking sense of humor.
That's true.
Is that
But
us? I don't know. I was born in
Yeah,
99. I don't know what the
it's
fuck
com-
I
We're like,
am.
it's
we're like
complicated.
That, we're like that weird middle ground between millennial and Gen Z, honey.
Yeah. And-
97 to 2002, I think, is almost its own.
yeah, and what happens to the
Thing,
gray
'cause there
area?
was-
I'm a Generation X, but barely, you know, Generation X. So, you know, are
an
you in
X-Man,
this?
run with
Yeah,
it.
X-Man. Yeah,
There
run with
is
it.
kind of like also a generation like they kind of like they just kind of combine the two words.
Yeah.
For Generation X and millennial. And kind
You
of
know
put it
what's
right there.
troublesome? We have not had a president that's Generation X.
Nope.
Which is kind of sad, considering
sad.
Generation Xers are now pushing deep into their 50s.
yeah, it should have been after Obama. Should have been our.
And we're still looking for baby boomers or beyond, maybe silent generation.
Right.
You know, now it makes sense. Silent generation looking at Biden. You know,
Well, I
He
still.
likes ice cream because that's the only thing he can eat.
Right.
yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah, but
All right, let's see.
that's it.
I didn't ask you, Fernando. What do you think about this generational stereotype question?
Well, I mean, I'm curious. Like, it feels like always there is a conflict of generation. Always, you know, the youngest challenging the older, and vice versa. There is, you know. I'm just curious, like, to read more and see like how much was like really back in the day, and I'm curious with the evil that the thing really got to like more extreme, like from the boomers to nowadays, and how far this will go. I definitely like feel as older I get, weirdly,
Yeah.
I start seeing, like, you know, with workforce, like, but I think I have a good like connection with even, you know, older than I and younger than I, but definitely like I see patterns in, you know, looking forward or backward that they're very different than each other.
Right.
That I cannot tell the generation does not exist, but what is the who is the culprit here? Is that technology? Is that self-entitlement? Like, it's a weird thing, but.
So I read something, Evo, that goes right along with what you were saying, and the author that I don't remember what her name was, but she essentially posted the notion that it is the lack of nostalgia that causes us to look at things in terms of generations, which she then attributed to the rapid movements in technology. Like, we don't have enough time to become used to any technology, so we don't actually have like nostalgia. Like, nobody at the table over the age of 40, let's say, is really hearkening back to the time when they had to use a rotary dial phone. Like, we don't miss it because we have so much convenience now. Go ahead.
Speak for yourself.
I had to learn how to use one of those because that's the only phone my grandma had growing up. So I was using them at like 4 and 5 years old.
Gotcha.
So I'm like an outlier, but like
yeah, you are very much an outlier.
I used to play
I
with
hate
the one at my
having
grandma's
to-
at my Aunt Muriel's house. I used to play with it.
I hate having to dial the area code every single phone number. I used to not have to do that.
Yeah, you're a weirdo though. You don't have a cell phone.
I
don't-
love being a weirdo.
I don't mean to be regressive, given this, given the fact that we decided this is a regressive idea, generational stereotypes. But I have several of these.
Oh, go for it. Go for it.
Millennials are I'm a millennial barely. Are responsible for avocado toast. And they've ruined, and they're selfish in this and that. I get. I'm a millennial, but just barely, and will be young forever, no matter the fact that like some millennials are like 44 now. Will always be the babies. I want that to continue, and Gen X. Everybody in Gen X loves the song Harvest Moon. Don't you love Harvest Moon?
I don't even know Harvest.
Damn it.
What
It's
is
a
it?
good song.
It's a decent song. It's not on regular rotation.
Yeah.
Not on regular rotation.
I do love Neil Young though. So
Yeah, Neil Young.
Oh, so no, you got to go with like Tool for me. So
Tool, okay.
Yeah, So
talking about
Dad rock with the
Schism
New
Tool,
Balances.
or-
is there any other Tool?
Karate Kid.
I'm a little slow, so
Said it. Karate.
me and Tool was going to Valley Falls, getting high in my friend's attic, playing Call of Duty while listening to Tool. That's what I still do, but that's how I listen to them.
That's perfect.
Isn't millennials the first generation that has lived their entire life with the internet?
With social media,
Yeah.
especially, yeah.
No social media until you were about 10.
Yeah, social media when I was 10, but that's when you're socially developing.
True.
And
yeah,
then
but like the generation after you, they had social
They
media.
have never
they had it all
lived
the
a
time,
second
but
without
we
social
had
media.
it. We had it while it was evolving.
It was ramping
So we
up.
had it like at its like.
Yeah, but so did we. Like, we actually, Gen X actually invented it.
Created.
Well, no,
yeah.
Gen X created it, and then they called everybody on it selfish after they made it.
Yes, because we're awesome. Yeah, Gen X complains about every goddamn thing.
yeah, the internet sucks, man. Bulletin boards were where it was at.
Right, yeah. So, what about the? I feel like boomers just get shit on all the time. Like, they can't
Yeah.
be as bad as TikTok makes them out to be. Like,
I think-
boomers are the worst.
I think that they're just old and tired and curmudgeon-y, and a lot more of them are right-wingers than.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like
Well-
Gen X has way less right-wingers. I feel like than the Boomer generation.
I feel like if it wasn't for the fact that like half our fucking Congress is fucking baby boomers and old fucks that are all right wing,
Right.
I think that is what's contributing to baby boomers are all.
So I'm gonna like push back on that just because I actually very, very much agree with what Evo said. And like, if you look at the way that like humans develop over time,
Yeah.
like you start idealistic, you become increasingly more practical, and there's this actual like physical thing that happens where your mind cannot make new connections anymore as you get older. Like, there's a reason that old people only listen to the music that they listened to when they were young.
Oh, I
It's
know.
because they literally cannot recognize the importance or the significance of the new patterns that develop in music. So it's not just that old people are conservative. It's like old people kind of have to be because of the way the human mind develops. Go ahead, Anthony.
I was going to say, I don't want to be rude, but don't try to talk about old people with her because she used to work in an Alzheimer's ward.
Right.
So I'm like, literally everything you're saying, I'm aware, I've experienced it.
But what I'm saying is, it's not just the Alzheimer's ward.
I will say it is
every
a stupid
person.
stereotype that like baby boomers and old people don't like people with colored hair. Because when I had 4 different colors of hair and was working in an Alzheimer's unit, I got told my hair was pretty like every single day. So that's a bullshit lie.
That guy was just trying to get lucky, though. So
It was a woman.
Oh, she was probably trying to get lucky too. So
Well, I mean, my wife's gay, so maybe not.
Your wife's a very happy person. That's really good. I'm glad you're a very happy person.
all right.
I just had to get her 2 dogs.
Did I touch on everybody on this question? Oh no, I don't know that I asked
We
you.
haven't
Anthony.
talked to either of us.
Yeah. What do
Me?
you think? Yeah.
Oh, you know, in 2008, when the housing market went to shit, I'm glad I was in grade school and, you know,
Not buying
not
a
out there
house.
buying a house. God, I
Should've
wish
been,
I was.
goddammit.
Whoever caused that to happen.
Can we have another?
I just want a house.
Please.
That's all I
Oh,
care
you
about.
don't want a house from back then. Like,
No, I get that.
Well,
but
I
I'm
know
just
that,
saying it
but
would be
like-
nice now.
right.
I don't really have stereotypes, but what's crazy is sitting here, I got hit by essentially like a ghost train, and I remember the phobia from me as a kid.
Oh, let's go back to the phobia.
Bigfoot.
Oh my goodness.
I studied him religiously. I learned about different families that exist in the Appalachian Mountains. I found out from the year 1990 to 2000, Bigfoot was spotted 23 times in the state of Kansas.
That is not surprising.
And I had a large forest in my backyard where I explored a lot. So every Bigfoot that I learned about, every Bigfoot that I studied, I had a recurring nightmare where it was essentially Normandy and I had to defend my home.
Nice.
Against Bigfoot.
And then it's crazy because my dad's asleep and I'm yelling at him and everything. It's a wild dream that I had consistently, and my dad's just sleeping on the couch, and I'm like, how do you not hear what's going on?
Don't you see it's Bigfoot? Dad.
And then I always remember right before I wake up, my childhood dog would always somehow get out of my house, run to the woods, and I would grab him. But as soon as I'm on my way back, I could tell I was about to wake up because my body would slow down, like running through syrup.
Right.
Everything else was moving full speed, full tilt boogie,
Just-
but I'm slow as fuck.
I've been there.
Yeah. That's like a recurring part of all of my nightmares.
And right before they grab me, I'm
That's when you wake
wide
up.
awake.
All right, Miss Lauran.
I think like one of the biggest generational stereotypes that's like kind of true, but like people complain about it and it makes no sense, is Gen Z has no respect for authority. And like that being a huge thing. And I'm like, no, here's the difference. If you grew up in our generation, you would have no respect for authority either. It's a thing of we were not raised anymore on the respect your elders because they're old. So we were actually taught, hey, respect yourself. Like, respect yourselves. Don't let people disrespect you just because they're old. And so we were taught not to blindly respect authority.
That's good.
So that was the thing. So like I always hear like older people, like older congressmen, like complaining about Gen Z not respecting authority. It's like, no, we just don't blindly listen to you and believe everything you say anymore. Because like another name for like our specific generation is Generation Columbine. Because we have never lived in a world that didn't have school shootings, that didn't have 9/11. Like, we never lived in that world.
Our school had
Like-
bombs.
9/11 happened, like, 3 months after I was born. I wasn't processing life. I didn't know a world where you could just go to the airport and you could go to the gate with somebody and see them off. Like, we have never lived in a world where violence wasn't so freaking prevalent. So, like, and, like, terrifying for everybody. Like, stranger danger has never not been a thing for us. So, like, yeah, we're not going to blindly trust authority anymore based on this stupid notion that they somehow know better just because they're older than us.
Go ahead, Anthony.
My dad watching the global war on terror evolve as my brother and sister are over in Iraq and Afghanistan. He always said, "Evil's never going to be destroyed. It can only be kept at bay."
I would agree with that.
And then my dad would do something absolutely goofy, and I would just go, "Where the fuck did you pull that out of?"
That's a good saying.
Another fun one is just Gen Z doesn't know older technology.
You guys
And-
do.
Yes, we do. I have been told so many times, like, you don't know what a VHS is. You don't know what a CD is. Like,
Floppy
motherfucker.
disk?
I do know what a floppy disk is.
Nice.
I know what all of these things are. I was born in 2001. Like,
How many kinds of floppy disks there is?
Who knows?
Give me the memory.
I don't know.
Memory.
Yeah. So
But I like.
Nobody knows that.
They're like, you don't know what a VHS is. I had a giant thing, like a storage case
VCR
of
tape.
VHS tapes, and even into like the mid 2010s, I was coming home, making toast and watching Rocky and Bullwinkle on VHS in my grandma's room because she had this old TV that had a built-in VHS player.
I think similarly, like boomers don't understand technology might be wrong too because they're kind of been around since the advent of like every type of
I will say my
computer.
Omi lives up to that stereotype.
My grandfather was a terrible, terrible, terrible email chain guy, and oh my
Okay.
goodness gracious.
God, the email chains, no. I remember that became like phone call and like voicemail chains, and it was the worst thing ever.
Boomers aren't that old, but I'm imagining if you've been around since a Turing machine, you have some kind
Yeah.
of. I guess is Silent Generation old enough to be around a Turing machine, and you
Oh,
have
yeah.
some kind of
Yeah.
knowledge of the evolution of.
Well, and
So I have a little bit of a different perspective on this. Chris, you back me up or tell me I'm an idiot. So one of the things, like, I tutored you in math. I tutor people
Yes,
in
thank
math
you,
all the
thank
time.
you profusely because I never would have gotten to it.
That's not why I mentioned it. Thank you for thanking me, but that's not why I mentioned it. I think that we get, humans get an idea that we can't do things in our head. And so when I tutor folks, one of the things that I notice all the time is that, like, I'm not really there to show them how to work the problems out. I'm there to, like, convince them that they can work the problems out. And for every person that I've ever tutored, like you in particular, you were 5 minutes. Like, it was just like, you can do this, and then you were just like, blah, 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 blah. But every person that I've ever tutored, it's not that they can't do the math, it's that they believe that they can't do the math. And I feel like that's the case with technology. I feel like the reason that my mom called every console system a Nintendo is because she didn't either think it was worth her time or worth the mental energy to actually learn that there's a difference between, like, a Nintendo versus a Sega versus. So those are the kinds of things that I don't know that boomers aren't necessarily unable to do, but they've gotten convinced that they either can't or don't need to. If
Like
that makes
compartmentalizing
sense.
their mental energy elsewhere.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's very true. It's all kind of a function of, do I need this, as to function in my existence? And so, like, for my grandpa, getting the computer, particularly after his stroke, that was the way he basically connected with everybody, was through the computer, and phone and mail as well.
Did
But
you show him the porn?
and I think he found that on his
Okay.
own. I had already found his porn stash long ago, so.
The digital stuff.
That's another thing. Constantly being able to like access porn for our generation has just ruined men. I like that's just
Just
like,
men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Anthony.
it doesn't help.
I was-
But
My dad, growing up, knew the name of every console, like handheld device we had. But God forbid, if it came to his children, he couldn't name them.
My mom.
He looked at me once and said, "Hey, Jordan, I'm really like your daughter, huh, Dad?" Wait, Chris, you're close.
No, my mom had 5 kids, and whomever she was talking to, she would run through all 4 names of the kids.
Youngest is 7.
I got
so
called my
there was,
mom's name by my grandpa a lot. So
Evo's an only child. He never had to deal with this.
Yeah.
Shun him.
Yeah.
Shun.
It was too easy.
My mom was one of 8, and they basically got nicknames, and that's how.
My family.
And that's how you knew you were in trouble, was because the nicknames came out. If your real name was used, you were fine. But if the nickname came out,
No, it was always bad.
it was the other way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
oh, he knows he fucked up if he hears his actual name and
That's
not
it.
Babe. He's like literally. I feel like I've seen him physically go rigid the second his actual name comes up. He's like, Anthony. Fuck.
Oh yeah, for me it was, for a while I was like, oh, Christopher Robin, how are you doing today? And then it became Christopher Robin.
I never knew your middle name was Robin.
No, that's just what my middle name is actually Chris.
Oh, gotcha. All right, are we getting close to an hour, Mr. Neal? 45. Yeah, I'm not sure I want to get into any of these other questions. I think I kind of want to save the remaining questions for next week, because the Biden question is longer than 15 minutes, and the judging people question I think is just going to be too much fun to waste on only a 10-minute section. So I think I'm going to call it at 45 minutes. I am going to want to say thank you to everybody that joined us today. That was Evo, Fernando, Chris, Alena, Lauran, and Anthony. I am Lou Walton. I have been your host, and thank you guys for coming out for another episode of Wednesday Night Interest.
Wee!